Hey guys, welcome back to Dorm Squad Sports, a college sports podcast focused on Alabama sports. I'm Dakota. I'm here with my roommates Bryant and Oakley. We got a great episode for y'all this week. We're going to be talking about the week in general. We have a great top five for y'all, just same as always. And we start, as always, with our elephant in the room. And Oakley, what is your elephant in the room?
So my elephant in the room is on Saturday. We had some sets where Tua and Jalen were on the field at the same time, and that's really like what people kind of wanted to see since we saw Jalen's not going to transfer, or really since Tua took over the job. But both plays went for positive yardage, and Nick Saban even said that he had more plays up his sleeve, but he wanted to not use them right now. Maybe some mystery for the future opponent. So I cannot wait to see what Nick Saban's going to do with both of those guys at the same time on the field.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about the defense a little bit. The defense gave up 31 points to Arkansas team that, really isn't that great of a team. I think the numbers can be a little misleading sometimes. It's a lot easier to not play as hard when you're up by 40 at halftime, and also when your starters aren't playing the whole game, it's a lot easier to give up some points. But I still think this defense isn't as dominant as it's been in the past. I think it's a good defense. It's not a great defense though, and but it'll be interesting to see how Tosh Upoy, Nick Saban can kind of help this defense along, and improve through the season.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mine kind of builds off of that defense because this came out a little bit later in the week that Trayvon Diggs injured his foot and just found out, I believe yesterday, that he's going to be out for the season. And our secondary's been doing relatively well, but this is just a big blow to our depth because we don't have a lot of experience going into the year and we haven't had a deep rotation throughout the year. So Saban said that we have experience, but we don't have depth. So when we lose one of our key players who was one of our key leaders, even if he might not be the best, it's really going to hurt our depth, which if we have another injury, that's where we're really going to feel it. I think we're okay for now. It's just the further on we go, I think it's going to get kind of rough if we have another injury. And just the game in general, like you said, like the defense gave up a lot of points, but I think it was mostly self-errors. Is there anything specific that you think we need to build on?
I don't know if it's really one specific thing. I think a lot of it is just, there's a lot of our stars from last year are in the NFL doing really good right now, so that's part of it. I think they will get better. I don't think you're going to look back once the season's over and say that was one of Saban's best defense, but I think you're going to be able to say it was a good enough defense. And for the first time probably in ever, or maybe not ever, but the offense is going to be carrying the defense, whereas it's usually vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, you can see even in that game, even when our offense was bad, we were still good. I mean, we had a fumble and it looked like it was going to be extremely bad, and we picked up the fumble and scored a touchdown and got to another touchdown. And I think that's just something that we're not going to have or that we haven't had before. It's just having an offense that you have so many tools that you're going to get points on every single drive. I mean, I looked it up, and literally we scored points on every drive except for the drive to end halftime, the drive to end the game, and the drive that was a turnover on downs. We did not punt the entire time for the whole game for the past 2 weeks. So just having an offense that just puts straight points on the board, your defense they don't need a slack, but it's okay if they're not as good as they used to be. Up next, we have our offensive MVPs. I had the first pick this week, and there's going to be a lot of people left off this list that deserve to be on it, but I'm just going to let y'all decide who that is, and I'm going to pick the obvious one. I'm going to take Tua. 10 for 13 passing, 334 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 99.6 QBR, 394.3 player efficiency rating. Yet again, he had more touchdowns than incompletions. And I'm pretty sure he has more 20-yard passes than incompletions on the year. He's having an absolute stellar Heisman season, and he's going to make every offensive MVP we had. I just took him with the first pick.
Yeah, so I took Jerry Jeudy. This guy is really starting to see what people expected out of him, being a 5-star coming out of high school. And he's really starting to separate himself from the pack, which is saying a lot because our top 4 wide receivers are NFL caliber by far. And he caught 4 passes, went for 135 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's about as efficient as you're going to get.
Yeah, I took Damian Harris. He carried the ball 15 times for 111 yards, had 2 touchdowns, and he averaged 7.4 yards on the ground, which is really good. we're loaded at running back, but Damian Harris, he gets the starts, and he does a really good job of doing what he's asked to do.
Yeah, and I mean, just saying the person we left off that's obvious is obviously Irv Smith Jr. That's just, he had a great game too. Of course, he had the touchdown, he had another big run. But the fact that we had to leave him off just shows how well our offense was doing last week. Defensive MVP, it was a little bit tougher. I had the first pick, and I took Shaheem Carter. He had 5 tackles, but most importantly, he had that pick 6. And honestly, just like a solid overall game from him. And we're really going to need our secondary to step up with Diggs being out. And he probably won't change positions, but he might move to star in certain packages. And every player just needs to get better on their own. And we need to really replace Diggs by committee. It's not going to be one person's job. And if he can keep being locked down like he has been, that's going to definitely help fill that void that Diggs is going to have.
I took Dylan Moses as my defensive MVP just because of the reliability he's provided us on the defensive side. We thought, like, who's going to replace Rashaan Evans last year? And Dylan Moses has really been the answer. He really, the way he plays looks like Rashaan in a lot of ways. He's a really fast guy, really versatile guy. But on Saturday, he recorded 10 tackles, including 3 solo tackles and 2 tackles for loss. Very explosive.
My defensive MVP is Deontay Thompson. Really, you probably could pick him in just about every game this year for defensive MVP. Same goes for Quinnen Williams. Both of those guys have probably been, like, in all college football, probably been top 5 at their position through this point in the season. In my mind, they've been the best players on the defense so far. But as far as what Thompson did on Saturday, he recovered a fumble. He was good in pass coverage. You can kind of tell he's kind of the quarterback of that secondary back there, making the calls and stuff. So he's really not a first-year starter. He got some starts last year towards the end of the season. He started like the last 3 games or so he had some experience, and that's probably helped him out a lot this year. But he's been a really solid player back there in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, I think Deontay Thompson probably has the best film out of any Alabama defender this year. It's going to be really tough to know who's going to be the first defensive player taken in the draft or just Alabama player overall. But he's definitely going to probably be the first, second, or third. Of course, you have Jonah Williams and Davis, and then Deontay Thompson. He's definitely safety number 1 on pretty much every draft scout's draft board. And he's probably going to go in top 5, definitely top 10 picks. We're not going to spend too much time hopping around the league, even though there was a lot that happened. Just obviously, all y'all know, LSU is no longer undefeated. Notre Dame, they pretty much have an easy path to the playoff after their win. Oklahoma lost, which was big, especially if we want to get 2 SEC teams in the playoff. Texas is back. I talked trash about them, I think, our second episode. And ever since I said that, they haven't lost, and they've been blowing people out. So hook 'em horns, I guess. But the biggest one is Auburn getting kicked out of competition for pretty much everything. And from what we've been hearing, Auburn it sounds like a dumpster fire. If one of y'all want to pick up on that, it's been pretty rough what Auburn's had.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty bad. Like, some anonymous sources have been coming out of Auburn saying that there's some animosity in the locker room. A lot of people don't like Jarrett Stidham's attitude, and they feel he's kind of cut off from the team. A lot of people don't like Gus Malzahn. I mean, because he's making some questionable calls during the game, and the leadership just isn't really there. And we've heard that a lot of people that are draft eligible for this year, if they have anything close to like a mid-round grade, that they're gonna take off and go. And I have to wonder if this is gonna affect the recruits. Like, do you want to go into a situation where Gus Malzahn still has 7 years left on his contract, and the buyout is $32 million. Nothing's going to change in that aspect for a while. So as a recruit, you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, and we're going to actually pick up on that a little bit later, but definitely absolute dumpster fire out of Auburn. So Bama lost, Bama won, Auburn lost, LSU lost, Oklahoma lost. Pretty good week for Alabama fans in general. If only Ohio State could have lost, it would have been even better. But up next is our Ballers of the Week. Oakley, you can take yours first.
Okay, my baller of the week was Dwayne Haskins. Like, I really don't like Ohio State either, just because of the Urban Meyer thing, and they beat us in 2014, and just because of Ohio State. But you cannot ignore what Dwayne Haskins has done for Ohio State. Last week, he threw for 455 yards and 6 touchdowns. I don't care who you are or who you're playing. If you throw for 6 touchdowns, that's amazing. He did have 2 interceptions, but, 450 yards and 6 touchdowns, amazing performance.
My player of the week is Notre Dame running back Dexter Williams. He carried the ball 17 times for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he also, his signature play of the game was that 97-yard touchdown run he had. Notre Dame's offense looked really good ever since they put Ian Book. I think they've scored over 30 points every game since he took over the starter, and I don't think they scored 30 once before he was a starter. So Notre Dame's really impressed me the last few weeks since they've turned to Ian Book, and I think they're a legitimate top 4 team.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And mine, I am all about this Texas upset against Oklahoma. So I'm going to have 2 different Texas players. My serious one is Sam Ehlinger. He had 314 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, plus 72 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. He absolutely had the game of his life. And I don't care what he does on draft boards or Heisman races. He's already going to be a Texas legend. This is equivalent to Austin Rivers at Duke basketball making that game-winning shot against North Carolina. It doesn't matter where you are in the record books or what happens. If you are the reason that you beat your arch rival in probably the biggest game of your season, he's going to have free beer in the state of Texas the rest of his life, and he probably can't step into the state of Oklahoma. And I kind of put a joke one in there too. Keandre Coburn, he committed Texas last year, and he tweeted it, and he promised that they were going to beat Oklahoma. And Baker Mayfield replied and just destroyed him on Twitter, calling him naive, saying he had no idea what it was like to play in the Cotton Bowl. And so he screenshot those tweets, and now after he got it, he took a picture of him with the trophy and said, promise is a promise, and added Baker Mayfield. So just absolute troll. He might not be a baller of the week, but he's definitely a troll of the week. So up next, just what did we learn? Bryant, you can take yours first.
I think something that I've learned is that I think there's 3 teams that have a legit shot at winning the national championship this year. I think that's Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. I think those 3 teams are just, from a talent standpoint and from a coaching standpoint, they're just clear-cut above the rest. I think Notre Dame maybe has a chance to enter that mix if they continue their dominance of late, but they'll need to avoid an upset because they should win out. They should have an easy road to the playoff, but they'll need to avoid that late upset against a team like USC or somebody like that. But I feel pretty confident in saying that Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia are the 3 best teams in college football right now.
Yeah, that's definitely a strong take. And with Notre Dame, of course, they're always known for, quote-unquote Notre Daming. But with Ian Book, maybe they'll have some luck that they used to not have. The thing that I learned this week was the SEC East is officially more interesting than the SEC West. If Georgia beats LSU this week, which I think we all predicted for them too, we should have a 2-game lead on our division before we even see LSU. And we could lock it up before the Iron Bowl in the first time in Lord knows how long. And in the West, in the East, you have Georgia leading the way, but Florida's on the rise. Kentucky's a scrappy underdog, and just top to bottom, there's just so many tough opponents. And Georgia's crossover schedule, of course, they play Auburn and LSU. It's tougher than most teams, and I don't think it's set in stone. Even though I think Georgia is the best team, I don't think it's set in stone that they're going to get out of the East Division.
So you're telling me that if we're 11-0 going into the Iron Bowl and Georgia beats LSU this Saturday, that there's a chance that the Iron Bowl won't matter again? Is that what you're saying?
It won't matter at all. I swear. Iron Bowl's just never going to matter ever again.
Just an annual thing from here on out.
Yeah, it's just the reason why we don't have Dixieland a lot. That's the biggest thing that I've ever gotten from an Iron Bowl.
So I learned that Auburn football is headed downhill fast. I've talked to some of my Auburn friends, and they want Malzahn out as fast as possible. The problem is, like I said earlier, his buyout is $32 million. I know they could come up with that money if they needed to, but that's still a huge amount of money, no matter who you're talking to. And even if he does get fired, Malzahn's really good either way. Either he has a job or he gets $32 million right now. So,
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest issue is that 32 million, and honestly, I'm not sure what the whole hype about Gus Malzahn is. I mean, I don't think he's never won them a championship. The best thing he can say, he's beaten Alabama a couple times.
Well, that's like all that like Auburn fans really want to a degree, like just to beat Alabama.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if they are settling for championships, then they're going to be extremely disappointed year in year out. But up next, we have our top fours. Oakley, you can take yours first. Honestly, ours there's just a switch between 3 and 4, but we all picked the same 4 teams. And Oakley, you can do yours first.
Okay, number 4, I had Georgia. You can look at them and tell they're a good team, but I don't know. They haven't played the caliber of opponents these other people have played, and so that's why I have them at number 4. Number 3, I have Notre Dame. They had the win against Michigan, the win against Stanford, the win against Virginia Tech, and they've looked like a better team ever since Ian Book has taken the reins. So I have them at 3. Number 2, I have Ohio State. They struggled a little bit early last week, I think, but Dwayne Haskins was being Dwayne Haskins and putting up big-time numbers. Got that huge win against Penn State. I think they're a super, super talented team. And number 1, I have Alabama. We're Alabama. We have Tua, and that's really all you need to be number 1.
Yeah, and like I said, mine's the only difference is I had Notre Dame at 4 and Georgia at 3. That was a really tough pick for me. I'm gonna put the strength schedule in the SEC just a little bit, and I think they've been playing just a tad bit better. Honestly, you can go either way, and I'm not gonna argue on that one. And then of course 4-3 Notre Dame Georgia, and then 2-1 Ohio State Bama. I think there's a much bigger gap between 1 and 2 than there is probably like 2 through 5. Because another thing, none of us put Clemson in, and they're still undefeated, and they're still a really good team. It's just, I think for all of us, it's just injury concerns and just quarterback play in general is why we all left him out. But I think every week, we're just getting further and further away from the pack.
Yeah, something interesting this week will be we'll kind of get a measuring stick of Alabama and Georgia because Georgia's already played Missouri once, and we'll see how Alabama does against Missouri this week. So, I mean, if Georgia did beat Missouri. The offense didn't look that impressive for Georgia. The defense really carried them that game, but we'll see how Alabama does against Missouri this game. We can kind of be a little measuring stick for the two teams.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Bryant's, yours was the exact same as mine. And I think the biggest thing is we're all leaving out Clemson, but there's just too many good teams. I mean, I think I'd say about 5 to 6 teams that are true contenders, or true, like, you can argue being contenders. But, I mean, Clemson, we had to leave out someone. We just all agreed to leave out Clemson.
Yeah, even though Clemson's getting left out, I mean, make no mistake, if they win, they're in. I mean, all they got to do is win their games because if Alabama and Georgia are still undefeated at the end of the season, they're going to face each other, and somebody's going to end up with a loss. So
You think whoever loses that game gets cut out of the playoff? Like saying that Notre Dame wins out, Ohio State wins out, and Clemson wins out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You think the loser of the SEC championship game gets left out?
Oh yeah. If there are 4 undefeated teams, yeah, the loser of the SEC championship would be getting left out.
Yeah, I think it'll be really telling because this happens especially in the AP poll. Everyone thinks they have a consensus about who the best team is and where the rankings are and who's better than who. And then the college football committee comes out with their rankings and everyone changes their opinion. So if they come out and they say that maybe Clemson's like 6th, 7th, 8th and shocks us, or if they're just not legitimizing Notre Dame or something along those lines, or if they think the entire way that Alabama and Georgia are number 1 and 2, then they might surprise us. But I think it's going to be mostly just seeing what's going to happen if everyone wins out. And I think you're right. I think that the loser of that game will have to be left out. Now, if it's a 1-loss SEC loser versus a 1-loss ACC champion or Big Ten champion, then we're going to have a lot of debating to do just like last year.
I think the best chance for the SEC to get 2 teams in will be for the Big 12 champion to have 2 losses, the Pac-12 champion to have 2 losses, and then Notre Dame will have to have a loss somewhere for the season's over. And then you'll be comparing a 12-1 Alabama or Georgia team to an 11-1 Notre Dame team. And I also think it's crucial for the loser of that SEC championship game to not lose by a lot. They need to, lose. It needs to be within a touchdown probably, just so they can, the committee can see the eye test, because they showed last year that they will take the eye test into place.
Yeah, and another big thing with that is just having it be a close game, but also if Alabama wins out, then they're one, and if Georgia loses that game, they'd probably be four. And I know they're not going to say it, but they have to think about how are they going to make the most money, and having an SEC championship rematch in the semifinal as opposed to in a championship game. The entire time we've had in the committee, they've had chances to put two teams that have played each other already both in, and they haven't done it yet. They didn't put Ohio State, Oklahoma in together. They just always leave one team out. So I think that would set a precedent if you replayed the SEC championship in the first round of the semifinal. But anyway, up next is our top five. We decided to do our top five offensive years for Alabama. It was really tough. We just looked at every season. I used a lot from points per game and just the players in general who were on the team when I did mine. Number five, I had 2016, mostly because it was Jalen's first year. He had Lane Kiffin. It was just an electric offense. Of course, we didn't get where we wanted to, but just having Jalen, I think he kind of took a step back that first year without Lane Kiffin. But when he had Lane Kiffin, he was just electric. Number four, I had 2013 because we had A.J. McCarron, and then we had T.J. Yeldon, Kenyon Drake, Derrick Henry, all in the backfield. And then we had Amari Cooper as well. So it was just a really, really good year in terms of just talent on the field. All those players are in the NFL right now, and it was just amazing. Number three, I had 2014. I think that Blake Sims might be one of the most underrated Alabama players, definitely the most underrated Alabama quarterback. He just did amazing things both with his arm and with his leg. He could always convert that third down on a scramble. He always had the deep ball to Amari Cooper that year. It was really impressive. Number two, I had 2015. Derrick Henry broke pretty much every single season record known to man. Enough said. His Heisman season. And then number one, 2018. There's Tua, the best wide receiver group we've had, probably the best tight end group we've ever had, one of the best running back groups we've ever had. It's not even close.
Yeah, so my top five, number five, I got the 2015 offense. That was obviously the year Henry won the Heisman. Lane Kiffin's second year as offensive coordinator. The run game was dominant that year. Looking back over the years, that's probably the only season where Alabama really didn't have a running back duo. Henry was getting the ball 30 times a game, and that's what they were rolling. The reason I don't have this offense higher is because the passing game it took it a while to develop. It really took towards the end of the season until Coker, you could tell he was starting to feel more comfortable. Cooper Bateman even started the game early in the season. So number four, I got 2013, AJ senior year. He had Amari Cooper on the team, Yeldon and Drake in the backfield. That was really underrated offense in my opinion. A lot of people, it kind of gets overlooked because they didn't win a national championship, but that was a good offense. Number three, 2012. I think this is probably the best that was probably the best offensive line Alabama's had under Saban. You talk about fit or just being able to run the ball at will on somebody. That team did it with Eddie Lacy and T.J. Yeldon all season long, especially in that Georgia game. Even though they were down 2 touchdowns in the second half, they continually just ran the ball, and Georgia couldn't stop them. Number two, I have the 2014 offense. That offense was good, even though Blake Sims was the quarterback. He really surprised me that year. I didn't think he was going to be that good, but he was good. He had Amari Cooper there to help him out. The running backs were loaded that year. We had Yeldon, Drake, and Henry. But Sims was kind of like that first mobile quarterback that Alabama had really ever had, and so they kind of adopted some of the spread concept and stuff like that, and the offense really took off in Lane Kiffin's first year. And then at number one, I have this year's offense. It really doesn't even seem close to any other offense we've had. It's almost disappointing whenever we throw an incomplete pass now.
So my number five is the 2012 offense. Like Brian said earlier, with the offensive line was amazing, and that made Lacy look even better. He was a really I don't want to say agile, but for his size, he probably was. Also had that spin move, was really fun. Plus McCarron, plus Amari Cooper, just had a great offense. My number four is 2016. That's Jalen's first year, and Kiffin really did a really good job of playing to Jalen's strengths. And it was fun watching him because we didn't know who was going to be the quarterback in the beginning. We thought it maybe like Barnett, but Jalen really took reins of the offense, and it was a fun year to watch. My number 3 is 2015. This is Kiffin's second year, and he really did a good job of playing. He's a quarterback whisperer, and he does a really good job with any quarterback he has, but he also played to Coker's strengths. And it was fun to watch Henry get like 40, 30 carries a game, and Ardarius Stewart had a really good year. My number 2 is 2014. This is Kiffin's first year, and this year was kind of surprising, I think, for a lot of fans because we didn't expect to have the success we did. But Sims was really our savior and our breakout player for that year, and it was just really fun to watch. And number 1 was 2018 season. Tua is the best quarterback we've ever had, best receiving core we've ever had, probably the best tight end core we've ever had, like Cody said, and it just doesn't feel close.
Yeah, I think another thing about that 2014 year was just that it was Lane Kiffin's first year, and he completely changed the way that we did things. He brought in an entire new offensive playbook. It was no longer just handing it down twice, throwing it once. It was, scrambles. It was read options. It was just so electric, and that's something that we weren't really used to seeing. It was always just our guys are bigger and better than your guys, and we're just going to beat you down and win the fourth quarter. But we were electric for all 4 quarters. It was a really great way to have it.
Yeah, kind of like this season. That 2014 season was another year where the offense was probably better than the defense. Because, the defense, it was breaking in a ton of new starters. And so.
Yeah, up next, what do we need to see against Missouri? Oakley, you can take it first.
Yeah, so this is probably the easiest one we've had. We need to see the defense improve. I mean, they didn't play terrible, but they gave up, how many points? 20-something points, and that's just not like our defense. I know they're young and stuff, but I don't know. Saban took the blame for it, though, him and Mac Wilson both. Saban said they need to do a better job of coaching, and Mac promised on Instagram that we would see a more dominant defense. And with both of them taking an initiative like that, this is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about the defense is we need to learn how to just handle mobile quarterbacks in general. Drew Lock is probably going to be one of the most mobile guys we see in the regular season. We might see someone later on. But another thing is we need to beat them better than Georgia beat them. Georgia beat them by 14 points. Obviously, the spread is a lot more than 14 points. So I think we will be able to do it, but we definitely just need to take care of business, hopefully avoid any injuries, and just get out of there with a sizable victory.
Yeah, just pretty much what you guys said. This is probably the best quarterback we faced so far. So the defense should come out hungry this week after giving up 31 points last week, and they should be motivated because I'm sure they're hearing all week long how good of a quarterback Drew Lock is. So I think it's important that they come out and show up and play their best game of the season so far because it might be the best offense we've played so far.
Yeah, and also I think attendance is going to be a lot better this game. 1, it's a night game. 2, I don't know if they've announced it yet. They might have by the time this comes out, but there have been a lot of rumors that Dixieland Delight is going to be freed this Saturday. So people are going to be staying there for that fourth quarter just for that alone.
Well, let's make our predictions. Do you think Dixieland Delight is going to be freed Saturday?
I think he's going to be freed Saturday, and I think he's going to be back in jail on Sunday. Because
what do you think?
No, I don't think it's getting freed. I know there's a rumor going around that they would free it if they changed a certain word to beat instead of the word they were saying, and yeah, I don't think there's a chance that's going to happen.
Yeah, there's no way that the students, especially the students, are going to say beat. Even if they do, like Cody said, it's going back in the safe after that.
I think the longest we'll see it is if they do find a way to say beat Auburn instead of what they used to say. Then we're going to have it, and they're either not going to play it in the Iron Bowl because they know what's going to happen, or they are going to play in the Iron Bowl, and the same thing that happened in 2014 is going to happen now, and they're going to be like, well, this is why we can't have nice things, student section, and we're not going to have it next year.
If they're going to do just a one-game experiment with it, I hope they just wait till the Iron Bowl to do it. I think that would be a lot better.
That would, especially if it's going to be only one game. I would wait for that. It would totally be worth it. Okay, up next, we have our predictions. First up, Tennessee versus Auburn. Bryant, you can take it first. A really big game in the SEC.
Yeah, I'm going with Auburn. Even though Auburn hasn't looked good, Tennessee, they're just still not ready to compete yet. I think Auburn will be able to run the ball this week probably. They haven't been able to run it the past few weeks, and maybe they can keep a clean pocket for Stidham to stand in there and make some throws.
Why do I feel like I could maybe take Tennessee in this one? I don't know. I mean, I'm taking Auburn. I have Auburn winning this game. They just had too much talent on their team, but they just haven't looked like they've had that talent. But I mean, they should still beat Tennessee pretty handily. But it's gonna be interesting to see if Jeremy Pruitt and the Vols can make this a game.
Yeah, I think this is honestly going to be like the disappointment bowl because everyone had, semi high hopes for Tennessee, not SEC championship hopes, but at least doing better than they have. And people thought that Auburn was going to be better, definitely than what we've seen already. And I think it's going to be an actual close game, and that's good enough for me. If Auburn struggles against Tennessee, I'm going to be happy because they're not going to score a lot of points. They never do. And maybe Pruitt can find a way to pull it out, but I think it's just Auburn's game to lose, and I don't think they're going to be able to lose it. Up next, a slightly bigger game in the Big Ten, Wisconsin versus Michigan. Oakley, you can take it.
Yeah, I have Michigan in this one. They've looked better since that loss to Notre Dame in the first game of the season. And Wisconsin Jonathan Taylor had a pretty good game last week, but I just think that Michigan's defense is going to be too much with Rashawn Gary leading the way. They've looked a lot better, Michigan has, since then. And I think a win here would be really important to giving the Wolverines a confidence boost heading into the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I think this is a game that it matters just because the loser of this game is completely out of the competition. Obviously, both these teams have their schedule ahead of them, but with one loss each, whoever loses this, they're not going to make it to the college football playoff. Probably not even going to make it, in Michigan's case, to their conference championship game. But I saw Michigan winning it. I think this is a must-win for both teams, and I think it helps other teams outside of the Big Ten if Michigan wins because Wisconsin should make their conference championship game. And if they're two losses and they upset whoever comes out of that other division, then that's going to be a really big hit to the Big Ten's chances to make it to the playoff. And it might kick out the Big Ten entirely, but I have Michigan winning it. Mostly just hoping they're going to win it, honestly. I don't know if they are, but I'm going to root for it.
Yeah, I'm going with Michigan too. Everybody kind of wrote Michigan off after their loss to Notre Dame, but if they win out, they'd probably be in the college football playoff. I'm not saying they're going to win out. They still have a tough schedule. They got Wisconsin, obviously, Saturday. They still got to play Michigan State. They got to play Ohio State, and then they'll probably have to play Wisconsin again. So, with this game being at Michigan at nighttime, I think the Wolverines come out ready to play against Wisconsin.
Yeah, being a nighttime game definitely puts that in their favor as well. Up next, another big win or big game in the Pac-12, Washington versus Oregon. It's a must-win for both teams for the exact same reason. They're both one loss already, and I'm going to take Oregon in the upset. I think that Browning for Washington is just a little bit overrated, and Justin Herbert is probably the most pro-ready quarterback that's going to go into the draft this year. There are going to be a lot of eyes on him, and I think he's going to play well because of it. And I think he'll just be enough because I think their offense is better overall in general. And they are a meltdown in the fourth away from being undefeated, so they are a good team. If they can just avoid a meltdown here, I think that Oregon's going to come out with the upset.
I'm going to go with Washington. They really haven't been talked about a lot since their loss to Auburn, but they really can't afford to lose another game if they want to have a chance to get in the college football playoff. So I think they'll come out ready to play, and I think they'll beat Oregon.
I like Oregon in this one. I know I picked Washington at the beginning of the year to be in the playoff, but Justin Herbert has really shown why he should be one of the first quarterbacks taken in this year's draft. Mario Cristobal has these boys looking good, and I think they'll get the win.
Yeah, up next, probably the biggest game in the SEC this week, probably the biggest game in general, LSU versus Georgia, and Oakley, you can take it.
Yeah, honestly, LSU hasn't looked that great. I mean, they've looked good against inferior opponents, but I don't think they can look that good against Georgia, especially considering that loss to Florida last week, because Florida is going to have a lot less talent than Georgia is this week. It's just not going to be that close, and I think that Georgia's probably going to expose LSU.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of call my shot here. I think both of these teams are overrated. I think Georgia is gonna win, but I wasn't really surprised at all to see LSU get beat last week at Florida. Florida's been improving ever since their loss to Kentucky. But I think this will be a tough game for Georgia going down to Baton Rouge. They got lucky it's not at nighttime, but I think it's going to be really a defensive slugfest kind of, and I think Georgia will get a win, but I think LSU will keep it close.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a very interesting game. And if this was a night game, I think I would pick LSU, but CBS just screwed everybody over to make it a 2:30 game. And I think Georgia's going to come in and win just because of that, because that environment's going to be a lot less hostile at 2:30 than it would be at 6 or 7. And we're probably going to have to play LSU at night just because it's Alabama LSU. And obviously it gets darker later on in November. But I think that this will be another one of those games where we can compare Georgia versus Alabama going into that SEC championship game, hopefully. And I think Georgia's going to win. I think it's going to be closer than most people think, but they're probably going to get the win. And our last game, obviously, our game of the week, Alabama versus Missouri. Bryant, you can go first.
Yeah, I'm taking Alabama, but if their defense doesn't improve, there'll be a lot of points scored by both teams. I think the defense will improve. I also don't think the offense is going to skip a beat this week. I got Alabama 59-21.
And as of right now, I'm pretty sure it's going to stay this way. It's a 28-point spread. If we don't cover that, it will be just because our defense is going to take lapses. But with Mac Wilson promising that they're going to be better, I think we're going to be good. We have to contain Drew Lock, but I have Bama winning 56-24.
Okay, so I think this game could possibly be closer than a lot of people are anticipating because of a few reasons. Number one, the defensive play last week didn't look that great. Number two, Trayvon Diggs is out for the year. Number three, it just came out that Tua has a sprained knee. He's been able to go through the reps in practice, and Saban says he's fine, but I wouldn't be surprised if he took him out a little earlier than maybe he normally would in this game, just to make sure he doesn't get even more hurt and we see more of Jalen. Now, Jalen can still play, but he's not going to put up the points that Tua would. So I got Bama winning this game 53-24. I know it's not I know I said it was going to be closer, but that's about as close as you're going to get.
I mean, that is technically closer than most people think. Okay, so that's it for today's episode. Make sure y'all subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you please leave a review. Follow us on Twitter at Dorm Squad Sports. You can tweet us there. We have a YouTube page. It's going to have the exact same podcast. It's just on YouTube, so another way for y'all to listen to it. Subscribe there, Dorm Squad Sports. Hit the notification bell. Make sure you get those updates. And make sure y'all stay safe and have a happy game day.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.